for joining us on the Right of Way Report, a podcast by Pike-Off OTA. You can join us here every Monday morning at 10 a.m., where we will bring you updates on legislation, litigation, and landowner information.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm hanging in there. It's the last week in April. It's almost May. And
Yep.
There's a lot of stuff to do between now and the end of the semester, for
There
sure.
sure is. There sure is. I don't know how we're going to get it all done, but it'll happen.
It'll happen. I think there's, 3 weeks left in school for the kids. They end the 22nd of May. So I don't know. It feels like it's going pretty fast, or maybe 4 weeks and counting this week.
Well, so my big kids are both in college, and Nathan graduates on the 9th, I believe it is, but he actually has to move out by the 8th.
Oh.
And so does our daughter. So we'll be moving 2 kids home from college next week. Is that next week? Or
That's
maybe it's the week after. It's
Yeah,
next week. Ah. So yeah, that'll be fun.
You're home for the summer. That'll be nice.
Yeah, and I may or may not have been using their bedrooms as storage, so I've got to do some cleaning out of their rooms before they can come home. So anyway, yeah, it'll be good times. It'll be a busy week or 2 for us.
Oh my goodness, yeah, for sure. But
in fact, we may or may not be able to do the podcast. What is it, next week or the week after? Is it next week?
Yeah.
The 4th, that's right. So just note to everybody that's listening, if we have time to record something for next week, we will do that. Otherwise, I think Amy and I both have something going next week on the 4th, so I don't know that we're going to be doing the podcast. So anyway, so we'll make note of that again later on and post that for everybody to know. But anyway, just throw that out there for now.
Yes. And before we forget, we should bring to everyone's attention so they can save the date. On Sunday, June 7th, we are going to have our 5th annual Royal Bavaria Family Fun Night from 5 to 8 at Royal Bavaria. And it's a buffet. So if you come, it'll be $22 for adults and $10 for kids. And then, alcohol is, you can buy beer and whatever you want. But Andy gives us a huge kickback on that buffet. So come and eat, and we're gonna have games, and Randy's gonna do his magician thing for the kids, and we're gonna have live music, and we'll give you an update on what's happening. It'll just be a nice fun night like it always is. We're gonna hope for good weather, because I remember last year, didn't we have to move it a week because of tornadoes or something like that?
I think we did. Yeah, we had some bad weather, and so we did have to change it up. So I'm getting ready to, if I can get this graphic loaded, I will pull it up for everybody, and we'll post it. We'll be posting it soon. So
yeah, we'll post, and I have it in a couple of my Substacks. And I apologize that my Substacks have been slow, but oh my goodness, it's been so busy. So I just finished writing the one from last week, and I have the previous 2 weeks, but I want you to read them in order, because I think the shenanigans that are going up in the legislature is absolutely ridiculous. And I don't think I've ever followed it this closely, to be honest. Watching what everybody is saying and how they're interacting. And I think it's really good to record it for history's sake, because I know we were talking to you about Senate Bill 80 and how the amendment we won't rehash last week completely, but just to remind you, we're trying to sunset all these location authorizations to protect the citizens against the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority from having location authorizations in statute for over, 50 years, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. And so we thought we put together a pretty good bill that it wasn't going to abolish the OTA or anything, but it was going to tell them, like, look, you have to pull out these location authorizations, and anything you put in has to be built within 5 years, or you have to go back to the citizens and talk about it, because transportation planning using 1960s technology is not good. And so they think they're building the East-West Connector and the Southern Extension based on a 1987 and a 1993 authorization. And of course, the 1993 authorization is really the H.E. Bailey spur. But anyway, what happened was that the chairman put in this amendment 17 minutes before the committee meeting started. And then it was a complete rewrite. And then the legislators didn't even read it. And they told me that I should be happy that we had 10 turnpikes taken out of statute. Well, in reality, it was 10 toll gates and interchanges, and I don't even care about that. And then 7 totally infeasible turnpikes that the OTA was never going to build anyway, and it had no sunset language in it. It hurt us in the strikeout on 1705F, and it took out all the transparency measures. So it was like they were posturing, oh, look, the citizens get 17 turnpike authorizations taken out. Well, okay, not really. We got 10 toll gate authorizations that don't even have to be in statute. And this is what really annoys me about the legislature is they don't understand a lot of what they're actually writing and doing and voting on, because over the years, different legislators have said, oh, I want a toll gate in my area. Let's put it in the statute. Well, you don't have to, because the statute says that all you need is a location authorization for the actual road. And then any toll gates or interchangers or whatever, the Turnpike Authority can put them wherever they want. I mean, that's how I read the statute. You don't need a separate authorization. So I was really ticked off that the legislators told me that I should be happy because I got 17 toll locations out of statute. That doesn't really make me that happy because the OTA wanted that anyway. And yet here we go. You're taking out the only thing that keeps the OTA from building the outer loop around Norman. You're giving them the ability to build whatever they want, just like they do with the creek and all around Tulsa. They're trying to wrap this entire metro. And so I don't really know what to do about this whole thing. And then of course I wake up today, Kelly, and you know what bill gets all the way through to the governor's office?
Yep.
You see that? Okay.
The new authorization. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So
for the bridge.
House Bill 2123. That was written by Representative Tedford and Senator Blair from the Tulsa area, Bixby area. Took one of our shell bills from Representative Sterling and in 6 hours had language put in, and it was passed through the first committee. It was through the second committee within 24 hours, and it was on the House floor within 1 week. It passed over to the Senate. It went through the Transportation Committee and onto the Senate floor within 48 hours. And it's on the governor's desk right now, and it gives the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority the authorization to build a bridge over the Arkansas River in the vicinity of Bixby. And now to understand why that's such a kick in the pants is that they had an authorization in there already to build that bridge. However, after the bonds were paid off, in the language itself, it said that, I'm going to find it and read it to you exactly. The bridge shall be self-sufficient at some point over a 30-year time period from the toll charges associated with a bridge project. So it was written in statute that once the bridge was paid for using toll revenue, the revenue bonds, that it would get turned over to the citizens and be a tax-supported structure, so they wouldn't be paying tolls over. So those senators and representatives rewrote that and just said, nah, we're just gonna, the OTA doesn't want to give it back to us. They just want to toll it in perpetuity. We're not going to talk to our people in our town. We're just going to say in the vicinity of Bixby. And we talked about this last week, that in the vicinity for the Turnpike Authority means like, I don't know, 5 to 25 miles. And in the vicinity of Norman to the Turnpike Authority actually means Purcell. So I feel bad for the citizens of Bixby because I have no idea if this bridge is going to be placed in the most appropriate part. And now you become a servant to the toll system. If you live on one side or the other, you're going to be paying a toll back and forth to work. They kind of get you.
Can we just take a minute and point out the fact that we have been up at the legislature trying to educate our representatives and senators to let them know that one of the main problems we have with the Turnpike Authority and these authorizations is that there was no public input when they were formulated. And that is a huge part of the process that we have concerns about. And we've been harping on this for 4 years now. And what did they just do? In 6 hours, they created a brand new authorization without consulting anyone in the town of Bixby other than maybe the Chamber of Commerce. That's probably who made that authorization happen. That would be my guess if I were to take a stab at it. But what about the people? How have they missed the point of everything we've been saying over the past 4 years? Not only us, but then the people who were fighting the Kickapoo and driving forward, back from 2016, everyone has been saying, we want more transparency. We want more public input in this process. If that's what they wanted to do to build this bridge, why didn't they put that out there 4 or 5 years ago and let the people start talking about it?
Right.
Instead, they rush it through and then they wonder why we're all so mad. So, it's just so frustrating to me that they still don't get it. They still don't understand the importance of public input, and they're finding ways around it. And then something else you said earlier too, about Senate Bill 80, and it just made me realize, or I was thinking about how Representative Grego, one of his questions of, letting that go through committee or not, he said, I just don't understand why we're taking out the authorization for the toll booths, because I thought the toll booths had already been taken out. Well, they have been taken out. We don't use them anymore. So why would you need to keep that in statute when we don't even have them? And how did he not know that they haven't already been taken out? Like, he was like, I think they have been, but do we still need this designation in case we need? Like, what was that all about? How does he not know? It was just a reminder to me that our lawmakers have very little understanding of a lot of our toll system and what the statutes do, what they say, what they mean, and why they're there. They don't know. All they see it is as power, and it is opportunity for a state agency to use their power. And they were very hesitant to let that go.
I know. And I haven't finished the Substack yet, but oh my gosh, like when you go back to last week, not last week, that's when I just finished, but 2 weeks ago, when Senate Bill 80 went through the Transportation Committee and all the legislators got up and said, it takes an act of Congress to get something through the legislature. Why are we removing this when it's been here for 60 years and we still need it? And I'm like, okay, no, act of Congress. You just got a location authorization through in less than 3 weeks because that's what you wanted it to happen. Like when the bad guys want stuff to go through, when the power to give more power to the government wants to go through, it goes through really fast. And he got up there and he was banging his hand. You can't, the southeastern part of the state needs a bridge over the Red River and we need this turnpike and you can't take this out. And I'm going, whoa, guy. Like, it has been on the books for 60 years and the Turnpike Authority has repeatedly said there's not enough volume to pay for that turnpike. And I mean, you're right. They have no idea. First of all, the history of what's happening. They think they need it, but they haven't gone back and talked to their constituents about what's real and what does in the vicinity. And they don't know what we know in terms of when you sign a resolution of cooperation with the Turnpike Authority, how your municipality gets completely screwed, which is the city of Noble just did. I saw that this morning when I woke up too, that you had sent me. So, I mean, I feel like we spend so much time educating, but then the people that got up and were so adamant, they're not even running for re-election. So now we have to go back and explain this all again. And I just pulled a thing that I had gotten from one of the legislators that the OTA had given to Representative Tedford. And I want to read this to you. This is in Director Joe E. Kelly's words, okay? This is talking about our bill, House Bill 1939, which is dead now because Senator Yak won't hear it. And he says, and I quote, "The issue this bill has for me is in the, quote, collaborate with local elected officials. During Representative Sterling's presentation of the bill, he defined collaborate to mean where two parties come together and establish an outcome where both parties agree. This would mean that any future project would need the support of the cities and counties. Historically, this would stop all turnpike projects because there has always been some city or county that didn't support the project. I recommend removing that sentence on page 9 of the bill that reads, the authority shall collaborate with elected officials of cities and counties where the new route will be located." They're telling you, they're literally in his own words telling you, they don't care what the city or the county want. They will not collaborate. They don't want to. They want to build it where their developers have land. They want to build it where they can make economic development a big deal, just like Joe Kelly actually said in the interim study, where he said he's putting Indian Hills where the service roads will create the most economic development possibilities for the city of Norman. You know what? The city of Norman says we don't want a turnpike. Why are they coming down on high to tell us what we want? And why are they taking my land for economic development purposes when it's clearly illegal according to the state constitution? So that's where I am this week. I'm super duper frustrated with everything and everyone that,
as you should be,
that it just can't see this, that, and I also don't like it. Well, there's nothing you can do. You should just stop fighting. No, I don't agree with that. I think we have to keep sunlighting all of this nonsense in the hopes that they are going to make a really big mistake. And I don't know, get put away for like mail fraud or something like that. I don't know. It's like something really
something's got to give.
Something's got to give. Yeah. So.
And, you would think that exposing some of the corruption or potential corruption, I guess I should say, would cause more problems and that lead to, stopping some of this nonsense. But it just doesn't seem to be the case. And I don't know what's going to open people's eyes, but I'm trying to pull something up right now. So if as soon as I grab it, I will get it for you. But you were talking about the developers having land in certain parts of the state. And so that's where they're putting the turnpikes. And I came across a situation of exactly that just the other day. So as soon as I can pull it up, I'll show it to you. And maybe people will understand what we're talking about. It might take me a minute, but.
And then Joe, so just thinking about, doesn't it make sense? I mean, I feel like we all know that there's like the deep state and it's just, we have a different, two completely divergent worlds. So you grow up and you want to be a civil engineer and you take all these classes and you learn how it's supposed to be and you're supposed to communicate with the community and they have a say in the transportation planning and you give them 3 routes and 1 no build option and you have all these town halls and you do all this environmental studies and you get everything done. And sometimes you don't build the road because it doesn't make sense. And sometimes you build it here. And then we have what actually happens. And I just go back to this would not even be a thing, Kelly, if the state Supreme Court was intellectually honest. Mm-hmm. Not very many people in the United States have the opportunity that we did when we had the law on our side, and the state Supreme Court ignored that and allowed them to move forward. And now, like without the law or without the people being willing to adjudicate the law, it's super hard to beat the billionaire grifters. And I think about that. I go back and read my Substack more frequently than I probably should about what all happened in that Supreme Court case. And I just don't even know what to do. And we're going to put out a thing. The elections are this year. And when judicial people come up for what do you call it? They're renewing their term.
Re-election.
Oh,
the judges would be renewals.
The renewals. Yeah. You need to vote do not retain on every single one. You don't feel bad. It's nothing to feel bad or feel good. It's just you need to vote do not retain. And that is just to help stop the cronyism that is going on, because it is insane. It happened in Pennsylvania, where I'm from, and there's a great book about it, and I'll find it. It's 1993. It's about the state Supreme Court justice corruption, where their brother was the bond buyer for the Pennsylvania Turnpike Authority, and anytime the citizens brought a suit to the district court and went to the state Supreme Court, the guy was like, yeah, no problem. Turnpike Authority, do whatever you want. Well, his brother was making $150 million on every deal. And it's just, and then the guy didn't go to jail. I don't know. It's crazy.
Shocker. Absolute shocker.
So, oh, and there was a comment. Those are the general rules for all other engineer and design professionals, not necessarily the rules for state and city projects. True, but most civil engineers should want to create the most economic and efficient and least destructive, most ethical infrastructure possible. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. Sometimes I think it's just me. But I would prefer to pick the path of least destruction when I'm creating infrastructure that's going to be permanent forever and ever and ever. And also, I think really, really hard about water. And with that intro, I don't know if anyone's seen this new book that came out. It's called Nourishing Growth and Suffocating Life: Water, Politics, and Infrastructure in Urban Oklahoma. So I'll put this, I don't know, this is probably going to be backwards for you, but I'm going to put this in the chat. It's written by a professor at OU, and it talks about the politics of water in Norman. And it goes back through and it talks about what happened when they dammed Lake Thunderbird and they took all that land from the absentee Shawnee and didn't give them a voice at the table. And then it talks about all the roadways and everything crossing all the creeks that run into Lake Thunderbird and the drinking water. And it talks about how the development is a redistribution of wealth. We're subsidizing the developers. And I haven't finished it. I'm only on page 48. But I'm reading it, and man, it's like everything. I really wish I would have known this a long time ago, because things would have made more sense. The city is run by the Chamber of Commerce, right? And the developers. I'm trying to find some of the quotes that I thought when I was reading it were crazy. Talks about, I don't know if people that are listening have lived here for a while, but it talks about, building lift stations to move water out into the suburbs, and how they tried to block some of those lift stations to get the developers to pay, and they were successful. But it says, like, for example, in Norman, real estate developers are usually the top donors of campaign funds to city council members. Developers hire attorneys to lobby for their interests. They have the power to continually fight to advance their agenda, even if they occasionally lose an election. Like eutrophication, conspiracy of developers describes an empirical process, but it also functions as a metaphor for broader dynamics, the use of public funds to stimulate economic growth. I just thought, with everything going on with the Turnpike and the city of Norman, and the fact that there's been no environmental studies done, and our lake is already classified as impaired, I thought that it would be a good read for everybody. And also to know that the fight is not over, because the OTA has not done any permitting. They're building a 7,000-foot bridge over the South Canadian River. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has let them out of everything. The DEQ has not done a water quality permit for them. They don't even have a 404 flooding permit. So none of the impacts of that huge infrastructure are being discussed on the downstream side, which is Norman, which is Lake Thunderbird, there's several endangered species in that area. And everybody should care about our water quality, because without water, we can't live. So it doesn't matter what political spectrum you're on, you should care that there's no chemicals and bad things in your water that you're drinking. And I just think that something has to be done. Why do we have the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers if they're not going to uphold their permitting process? And that being said, the Bureau of Reclamation, the East-West Connector, is also going to cross over some of this Lake Thunderbird easements. Let's talk about the impact to that, to that water from that. So this is not over. And when I get discouraged, like I was this morning when I woke up and I saw the city of Noble had signed a resolution of cooperation, and then House Bill 2123 got all the way through, when our bills are like stuck in limbo because people put stupid amendments on them. I think that, good people need to keep it up and keep fighting and keep putting it out there, because something's got to stick.
Hopefully. You would think at some point.
Oh, this is a good point. I didn't think about this. So there's a comment that says, professionally deceiving how many state and city job descriptions that use designer, architect, and engineer that are filled by individuals who are not a state professional licensed anything, yet they are making many of these decisions at this level. Yeah, that's a good point. I actually think the city staff, I guess that's what you'd be talking about, that they're the city engineer, the city staff, and they're the ones talking to the OTA and not allowing the citizens to have a voice. That's how they got so far ahead back in 2021. They knew about it. And then, another thing to think about is all those city staff, they're looking for their golden parachute. So a majority of those guys go out and work for the consultants that they've helped bring infrastructure to the city for. So, and that's
Can you see this?
problem. I can see that. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to explain to you guys what this is. If I seem distracted, it's because I was putting this together real fast. So some of my research not too long ago when I was trying to help a landowner. So this, by the way, is Highway 77 down in kind of the Slaughterville area, just south of Noble. Turnpike's going to come through here, I think, connect over here to I-35. I'm not sure if you can see my arrow or not, but anyway, probably can't. But anyway.
The turnpike is yellow. The turnpike is yellow.
Yes, the turnpike is yellow.
The big circle is an interchange.
That's a potential interchange. Yeah. And I want you to take note of this triangle, this red triangle here, and then this other little parcel that just happen to be on either side of where a potential interchange is going to go. And this is owned by an LLC called Part Investments LLC. So I'm like, oh, that's weird. This LLC has land on both sides of where this turnpike is supposed to come through. That's suspicious. Wonder who owns that. Well, so you go to Cleveland County Clerk records page, and you can find where this entity has conveyed property to another entity or another party. It could be an individual or another LLC, whatever. And they have to sign it. And so that's how you can see, looking at the signatures on this conveyance of property, which is not that property, but it's another property in which they sold to someone else. But look who the signatories are for Part Investments LLC. Paul Howard and Tammy Grissom. I was like, Tammy Grissom. Would that possibly be a family member of our current Cleveland County Commissioner, Rusty Grissom? Well, it turns out it's his wife. So that's rather suspicious because, Amy, you were talking earlier about how Turnpike Authority usually plans these routes and they're going to go where they want them to go, and they don't want public input because, lo and behold, some people might have already bought property knowing this turnpike was coming through. Now, I'm not saying that happened in this case. They've owned this property for a while now. I can't remember exactly how many years, but I should go back and look at that and make some notes and comments on that. But isn't that interesting that one of our county commissioners, and he's worked for the county before he was a commissioner for a long time. So, and we know that Rod Cleveland knew before the turnpike announced back in February 2022. He found out as early as December what was happening. So, it just kind of makes you wonder.
And he sent an email to the governor asking him how he could help make the turnpike happen. We should bring back all of those emails that we got early on. I mean, we have so many documents. And I feel like there's so many new people to fight. We should really, honestly, maybe bring some of that stuff back and show you the interplay between the Cleveland County commissioners, the city staff, all those open record requests we have, some of the consultants that work for the city doing planning, but are also a big time prime on the OTA's consultant list. It's so much conflict of interest and insider dealings. And then we should bring back your graphic, Kelly, on the west side, on the east-west connector, on all those developers that bought on the Indian Hills.
Yeah, I'll look for that. And then this might be a good time to bring this up, but it just came to my attention the other day that whoever is running against Wilk, Representative Wilk, which Wilk has been great for us. He's been wonderful. So I've liked him anyways. But anyway, I think someone's running against him in this upcoming election. And it might be interesting to point out that this guy posted that he works for Team Engineering and has for like 32 years. And that is one of the engineering companies it's one of the big 12, as we call them. And a conflict of interest, and he posts about how he is in huge support of Access Oklahoma. And anyway, I don't know. The conflict of interest it's wild to me. Anyway.
Yeah, I think his last
Okay, I'll look for that.
His last name is Thompson, and I went into it a little bit with him on Facebook on one of his posts. So what a lot of people don't understand is when you have suburban sprawl, the developer doesn't pay for all of that infrastructure to get out to the suburban sprawl. So if you have to bring out gas and you have to bring out electric and you have to bring out water, the city or the municipality is responsible for bringing all of that stuff out. And so suburban sprawl costs and bootstraps the municipalities and cities forever on just constant maintenance of that roadway. That's why we're a big proponent of urban infilling. Why can't we fill in the 87 empty commercial spaces in the Norman proper? Why do we have to go out and create these turnpike zone busting areas where they're going to put service roads and then change the zoning to commercial, and then we don't have enough water for all of this? So I got into it with him because he said, oh yeah, the turnpike's coming. We might as well get on board with it and be happy with it. And I was like, whoa, so who's paying for the maintenance for your county? Who's paying for McLean County to have, the county roads and the city roads out to all this stuff that has to connect? Because the Turnpike Authority just blows through and does what they do, and then they leave. They ruin your roads during construction. They don't pay you back. And so and if there's flooding or anything that happens on the sides, they don't do anything. They are not good neighbors. And I don't really understand why people can't understand that.
There's a ton of lawsuits against the Turnpike Authority from abutting landowners for drainage issues, flooding issues, all kinds of stuff. And actually, this guy's name is Mike Fullerton for State House District 20. And I'm working on a graphic right now to show you. So I'll post it so everybody can see what we're talking about here.
Well, I think we knew they were. We have a comment. I think we know they are contract criminals. I think I mean, that was apparent right from the get-go, especially when we reviewed everything that happened on the Kickapoo. No one holds them accountable, even if they have a contract. I don't know if that's what you mean. Even if they have a contract and they say, we will pay you $4 million for the damage on your road in Luther. And then the Oklahoma County commissioners go, hey, we got damage, give us our money. And they're like, no, we're not paying. I mean, and then they, I don't know. They're still in litigation. They are still appealing a verdict on the Kickapoo when a family took them to court. The jury awarded them $3-point-something million over the initial offer of $1-something million, and the OTA is appealing the verdict, so they don't have to pay these people $3.2 million yet. Now the lawyers keep getting money and all this stuff. It's insane that they don't do what they say they're going to do.
Yeah, it is. So I have this graphic up now. Now you can see it's Mike Fullerton for House District. Anyway, it's just kind of interesting.
Yeah. So this, you can see where this. So this is the one I commented on, because this picture, if you can see it, is the connection at Johnson Road in Purcell. And if you are living in Noble or Purcell, Noble down there, you know you already have a bridge over the Canadian River on 77. And you know that this turnpike is slated to run a half a mile in parallel with 77. That is a 4-lane road. I've driven on it. I can show you all of my dash cam video. I have never driven less than 65 miles an hour on that entire stretch. Okay. So I pop on and I say, because he said, the University of Oklahoma professor said that, even she said, we need another bridge. And I'm like, whoa. You don't need a new bridge in Purcell because of X, Y, and Z. And you're going to bootstrap your cities and counties that have to raise the property taxes to pay all of this maintenance and blah, 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 blah. And he wrote me back some nonsense answer. He doesn't understand the problem. He's like, well, it's coming. We need to work with them. I'm like, again, you don't understand the problem.
He understands the problem entirely. The problem is, if the project gets cut, then so does potentially some of his salary. Because they won't have that project anymore. They won't have, his company will lose the contract.
And then, whatever. Interestingly enough, somebody else popped on to this same thread and said, I was really wondering why it was going in this particular area. And then I started looking at land records and, it looks like a county official owns this area right where they're going to end this connection. And why can't, how did they know about this? And then it's kind of like this. And that's what I think I told you the story. And then you told me about this. And so I think citizens are like waking up to the fact that it's all about development and busting city zoning laws. It has nothing to do with transportation. It doesn't. And I'll argue with anybody about this. There's no traffic need for the southern extension specifically. Okay. It's not going to improve the traffic on I-35. And even Joe Kelly agreed with me on that and said it in an interim study. It takes you 18 miles east of the city. You're not coming from Dallas to go to Tulsa up I-35. You're taking Route 69. So none of the arguments that they make for this are true. So the only way it can make any sense is for economic development purposes. And you cannot, by law, use eminent domain for economic development. Yeah, and that's right. And he's talking about Tom Elmore. Tom showed us Poe and the rest of them stole Union Station back in the day. That's right. And Tom's a great resource. He's been fighting this for a long, long time. And, they took out all those tracks and all the ability to use train facilities and have commuter rail and all of that. And they did it on purpose because they are the cartel. And this is totally down another rabbit hole, but I was talking to someone the other day about all the scientists dying, that have been working on UFO or fusion or different transportation modes. But what if it's like Big Pharma? Like Big Pharma doesn't want you to be healthy. They want you to stay hooked on all their stuff because you're a moneymaker. If you're healthy, you don't make them any money. It's the same thing. If we're not driving on roads and using fossil fuels, well, how are we making the road cartel any money? And so I feel like if you come up with a different way to travel and a different energy source, you're not a real big fan, or you're not a real big friend of the government or whoever's taking these people out. So the transportation cartel wants to protect their roadways and their pavement and their concrete at all costs. And if any other mode of transportation ever comes up and ever starts to make inroads, they're going to be fighting like heck to keep their claws in that money because it's so much money. So much money.
Well, and I was thinking about it the other day, and ODOT just did that I-35 corridor study. I was trying to look for it just a second ago, and I can't seem to find it to pull it up to show you guys. But they're actually going to widen I-35, even though they say they can't. And it's going to go it just kills me. So many things. But yes, they're going to do a lot of upgrades. So they're going to upgrade a lot of the overpasses. So like Tecumseh is going to be redone, which is shocking to me because it seems to me like they just built that bridge or redid it. Apparently that was like in 2011. So it's been like, 10 years or something now. It's old, but they're redoing that whole interchange. And they're redoing Indian Hills, of course. They're redoing 19th Street. And so and they're going to put these I think they call them throughputs or something. And so right now, people will hop on the highway at Main Street, even though they're just going to Tecumseh, because they don't want to take the service roads because it's faster. I'm guilty. I do the same thing. But now you can take this kind of this throughput type thing that's not a frontage road, and it's not really the highway either. It's kind of somewhere in between, literally in between. And I think if we had what ODOT is planning to do on I-35 in all of these trouble spots, that would solve a lot of the problems that we have. So again, why in the world do we need the turnpikes if we could just improve the infrastructure that we already have, which is what we've been saying since the very beginning, is that these on-off ramps along I-35 at 19th Street and I-240 and, all these other places cause major problems. And that's where the collisions are happening, which is what leads to congestion. It's not too many cars, it's inefficient use of getting them through that area.
Yeah, totally agree. And that was one of the first things back in 2022 that when I wrote that 100-page report for the Oklahoma Transportation Commission that had to vote on whether they thought the OTA should do this thing. Again, voting means they're just rubber stamping. But anyway, I put out all of their own data and said, show me how this free flowing traffic, and then when it gets a little bit slower, tell me how that's a function of the actual capacity versus getting on and off and backing up there. But yeah, we can talk about that too, because I think there's a lot of new people that would like to know the science or the lack thereof, or the pencil whipping that the OTA did on their traffic studies. And we have those emails too that said, from ODOT to OTA, would you like me to change those numbers? Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
We have emails that say, we're going to pencil whip. Okay. And then we bring that to people's attention. They're like, oh, well, nothing to do about it. Okay.
And so that's what, the city of Norman was asking ODOT for the traffic study volume numbers so that they could use those numbers to work on their upgrades or, maintenance projects or whatever for their city infrastructure. Because the city of Norman, if you remember, partially paid for, along with ODOT and the city of Moore, they all went together to pay for that I-35 corridor study so that they could all benefit from, the results, right? Well, ODOT wouldn't release it in these emails. They say they won't release it to the city of Norman, even though we paid for it. because, well, OTA is still working on their numbers and our numbers don't jive with their numbers. And so they're real hesitant to let that information out right now. So we're really sorry that you paid for that and your citizens use their tax dollars to pay for that. But no, you can't have it. For over a year, they withheld that information because OTA was probably trying to figure out how to cook their numbers.
And then when they finally came out, and this is the last thing I'll say about it, and then we'll go to this next topic for the last little bit. But then they said there was 5,714 or something cars projected to go east and west on Indian Hills right by I-35. Okay, so we're going to build a 6-lane turnpike to hold 5,714 cars getting on and off Indian Hills. Like, it's ridiculous. We have all the numbers, and I need to have, I don't know how I'm going to make more time to get this all out to everybody, but just put it in writing so you can just see and everybody can see, and it's all there, that they can't rewrite the story, because that's what people do. These agencies rewrite history. Now all of a sudden they say, when we announced our turnpike when did they say? December of 2021, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So now they're rewriting history, but when we took them to court, they said, oh, well, we announced it in 2022, and they lied when we deposed them, and they're very slippery, and it's hard to get a hold of them. But I asked Kelly if she could put together this graphic, because someone had asked me for this on Facebook the other day, and Kelly can explain, but this is a graphic of all the homes that have been purchased by the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority already on the east-west connector. So go ahead, Kelly.
Yeah, so this is just the Cleveland County Assessor's website. Anybody can pull this up. You just go to the map, plug in Oklahoma Turnpike Authority, and it will populate a map with all of the homes or properties that they have already purchased. I think it's important to point out that the Turnpike Authority, this is kind of one of those nuanced situations where they say, look at all of these landowners that we had successful negotiations with that we didn't have to take to court. Well, that is, I guess, true in some sense, but I want you guys to understand that every single one of these landowners knew that they didn't have a choice. And a lot of them are under the impression that if they go to court, they're going to lose somehow, which I don't know how you could lose any more than you already are. I mean, if they're telling you they're taking your property. But I think a lot of landowners just don't want the stress of going through the court system. And it just sounds bad. When you say condemnation, well, we're going to file condemnation on you. It sounds bad. And we have a negative connotation associated with that word condemn. And I just want people to understand that that's just the court process. It doesn't mean they're suing you. It means that they're starting the process where the court can come in and, I don't know, it's kind of a long process to explain, so I won't get into that right now. But anyway, but it's just important to point out that even though it looks like a lot of these properties just settled out of court, I think a lot of these properties would have held out longer if they had known that they could have. So let's move forward and go to maybe this slide.
Yeah.
So you can see here that we've been getting a lot of calls from landowners in some interesting places. Up here, on the east-west connector, kind of near I-35, we've had a few people reach out and say that they've received letters, which is a notice of interest, which is the first official notice that a landowner would have that, yes, your property is in the way, as Terry Angier, their spokesperson, said, if your property is in the way of our turnpike project. So some of these people have been notified that they are in the way and they must be removed. So you would kind of expect that right there by I-35 along Indian Hills we seeing that. But we're also getting information from landowners on the south extension over by Etowah Road and kind of near the Lexington Slaughterville area that they've been receiving letters as well. And so you can kind of see that here on this map. And anyway, yeah, it's just kind of interesting that this is that they're starting there. And the reason I think that's interesting is because Amy, if you want to say a few words about that, I'm going to try to pull up a graphic on I'm going to do a screen share here in just a second if I can get this to go up.
Sure. And I just found the corridor study, so I put it up in the link, and I put a link to my Substack to show you the traffic around Indian Hills. I showed you the developer land and all of the stuff. So anyway, for this certified mail, yeah, I asked Kelly to put this graphic together so we can show you, and I want you to tell you what's happening. So I'm getting phone calls, and some of them I know, and I've worked with them. Amy, what do I do? And I say, you need to chill. I know it's stressful and you want to do something, but you need to hang on. Just hang on, because I'm telling you, I have a good feeling that the Southern extension is just not going to happen. Okay. So it's a possibility, and I want to be able to give you more information about that. And in 2 weeks, I think I'm going to be able to, but you don't sign anything when you become a willing seller. The only thing you should be doing is calling that number or emailing the email they give you and asking for their policies and procedures on what they do. Do not schedule an appraisal. Do not say that you want to sell. If they say, oh, you have to be out. One of the people told me that, they told her that they wanted her out by August 1st. The Southern extension is not even on their construction schedule.
That's what I'm pulling up.
If it gets built, okay, if it gets built, they will not start until 2031 to 2032, okay? That's a long time. The legal system takes a long time to work. I just need you to put your feet in the ground, do not make contact, get yourself an attorney. We can give you some recommendations. I won't put those recommendations in writing, but if you want to call me, I'll tell you who I think is good and who you should really stay away from. And you need to just put it in park, because the worst thing that could happen is that you sell and you get out, and then, well, they don't build it. And what's becoming more and more difficult, which Kelly showed you on the East-West connector, since so many people are just selling and saying, oh, I wanted to move on with my life, it's making it harder and harder to stop that particular route. But if we can keep the Southern extension intact, don't sell, okay? There's no rush. The reason why they hired 5 more firms in the last meeting was to get ahead of us so they could beat us, because they know every time we launch an attack on them, they know that we have the facts on our side, and they know that we have, the truth, and they are trying to get under your skin and use fear. Don't let them. Be educated. We are not lawyers, and we cannot, advocate on your behalf, but we would like to educate you on what's happening, because what they are telling you and how just their flippant, passive aggressive comments to especially older people are really kind of disgusting. If I was there, I'd probably lose my cool and be like, look, you cannot say that to them. That is not what happens. You can't say, well, then we're just going to have to come back and condemn your house. Because people don't really know what condemn means. It's not a bad word. I tell people all the time, condemnation is not a bad word. Condemnation puts all of the power back in the negotiator, who is the homeowner. The homeowner typically always wins when it goes all the way to condemnation. The condemning agency is trying to get you out for as little money as they can. And when you take them to court, and when you take them to even into the first step of the condemnation process, they're like, oh my gosh, I actually need this piece of land. I'm just going to pay it. And my problem with the OTA and probably other condemning agencies is, why are we nickel and diming these homeowners over $25,000 or $50,000 when you're no problem paying the contractors, $1.3 million change orders anytime they want it? And so we have to change the eminent domain process in Oklahoma. But until then, do not sell. Please do not sell.
So I can't seem to share my screen, but what I was going to show everyone is if you go to the Access website, Access Oklahoma website, and you go to resources and then click on construction access, and then click on letting schedule. So the letting schedule is where they're basically telling you this is when we plan to put these different projects out to bid to the contractors, which is when obviously then you can say, okay, well, that's when they plan to construct this portion of the project. The South Extension, none of the projects on the South Extension are listed in the letting schedule at all. So I'm really not sure what the rush is on acquiring any landowner's property, because it doesn't, and just so you guys know, the letting schedule goes all the way out to March of 3031. Right. So if they don't have the South Extension budgeted to let the contracts for construction before March of 3031, then why in the world are we taking people's property and scaring them and making them think they have 6 months to get out of their house or a year to get out of their house or whatever it is? What's the rush?
I know.
There's no rush.
The rush is they want to get so far ahead and have all they want the Southern Extension to look like the East-West Connector. Mm-hmm. And then they're going to take that to the judge and they're going to say, well, Pike off OTA is right. We really don't have authorization to do this. And we really didn't do our environmental impacts, but look, we have 100 homes. We have all this property. We have a whole corridor that we can build. And we've already hired the demolition team to go knock down everybody's houses. They don't even have a house to come back to. That's what they want to do. And that's what they did on the Creek. And that's what they did on the Kilpatrick. And that's what they did on the Kickapoo. They went so fast so that the citizens could not launch or could not finish the fight. And this time, I just want you all to know that this time they have met a formidable foe. Pike off OTA and the citizens that have fought in these last 4.5 years, we've done something that nobody else in Oklahoma history has done. We have stalled them from starting construction for 4.5 years. No one has been able to do that. And the reason we're doing that is because we have facts and truth, and we have people that are willing to stand up and fight. And so we need the homeowners to please stand up and fight just a little bit longer, just a little bit longer. It's going to make a huge impact in the long run. I'm still so optimistic about that part of the East-West Connector. The part about the Newcastle Bridge, I think that we're going to stall that for a couple years until they do what they're supposed to do. But I think that eventually that's going to get put in. But I'm still, the Lake Thunderbird watershed is pretty important, and I'm still optimistic that we can get the Bureau of Reclamation and some people in high places to stop it. But it's going to be pretty hard if you see all those properties getting sold off. It makes it a little bit harder for the judge to look at it and be like, oh, well, they already have this, so let's go do it. And that's exactly what happened in the Creek. So we should probably do a podcast on this, the whole Creek debacle. But what happened on the Creek was the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers required them to get a 404 permit, and required them to do an environmental impact statement, and required that the Fish and Wildlife Department required them to do all this permitting because there was an endangered species in the creek that's up by Tulsa. And the OTA said nope. And so they bought all the land all around the creek. They went all the way and they built it from both sides, and they stopped. And the Fish and Wildlife Service said, no, you can't build that bridge. You don't have the permit. And the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers says, no, you can't build that bridge. You don't have the permit. So guess what they did? They sent Henry Bellman, the governor of Oklahoma, to Washington, D.C. This is all in his autobiography. They sent him to Washington, D.C., and they asked the Secretary of the Interior to please give the OTA the permit so they could finish the roadway that just needs this little bridge. Thus needs this little bridge right there. So this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to get so far along that the agencies are just like, they throw up their hands and be like, okay, fine, whatever. And that's kind of funny that bridge was the last thing, because that's the roller coaster bridge, Kelly, that was built by that contractor that did so badly. And then 21 years later or whatever, they hire the same contractor to go make more money and build the one that built the roller coaster bridge. So anyway, I'm
They
telling
did,
you,
and we found evidence. Like there was an article, or no, it was one. I think it was Fox 25 out of Tulsa did an interview with one of the engineers who actually worked on the bridge original project, and
yeah,
he talked about the kickbacks and the corruption. And I believe it seems like the owner of that engineering company actually went to jail for a while, into prison for a while for colluding or like bid, well, he was bid rigging with like some city staff with the city of Tulsa or Broken Arrow or something. I can't remember what it was, but some I think it was the city of Tulsa. He got taking bribes or giving bribes or something. So, you know,
he got rewarded with the next contract though, the $23 million contract or whatever it was.
yeah.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah.
You do a bad job, you get to do it again. Just like
And
what
so
happened
that's
with the Southern Extension, right? Poe and
Yeah.
Associates designed a whole Southern Extension right through the Bureau of Land Reclamation, and they got paid like $12 million. Then the Bureau's like, you can't build here. So then Poe gets it again, gets to make another $12 million, moving it to 2 miles west.
program.
Yeah.
They didn't care if it got scrapped.
I think the whole purpose of today is just, we wanted to let you know what's going on in the legislature. Of course, tell you about our Royal Bavaria.
Oh, yes, here we go.
Our Royal Bavaria event, and also tell you about the letters that people are getting on the Southern Extension and the East-West Connector. And just please, the community just needs to stick together. We can, because of all the things and all the books that we talked about. So the nourishing growth and suffocating life, all the water could be our saving grace here with the turnpike. And so if we understand the history, we may be able to come up with a plan that will keep it out of the keep the turnpike out of our environment. And one more thing before we go. So I had to drive to Tulsa the other day, and it was really late at night and all the storms were coming in. So I actually took the Turner at night. And did you know that on the new section, and I want to play my dash cam. I need to go get my dash cam before it rolls over. I want everyone to know what it's going to look like with the lighting. They have lighting for 20 miles on their new section. You know, when they widened it, the lighting is I think it's every 20 feet. Mike says, because I was driving pretty fast, it's probably every 100 feet, but I don't know. It's every 100 feet, and it's like light, dark, light, dark, light, dark. So it's a strobe effect, and you can see those lights. Those lights are high, 150 feet. You can see them for miles. So it's just like those wind turbines, you know, with the big lights on them. This turnpike, all the other roads in our state, if you drive around and pay attention, do not have lights except for around the interchanges. Now all the new turnpikes are having lights. Whose brother is the lighting contractor?
Probably the ones that have the purple lights, like at the hospital. Have you seen that more location they have there on I-35 at like kind of by 34th Street, I guess it is. The lights in that parking lot are purple.
Was that like supposed to reduce the light pollution?
I swear I read something that said that they were messed up.
Oh, well,
Shocker.
the ones on the Turner Turnpike are obnoxious, and it makes it really, honestly, it makes it really hard for me to drive at night. I didn't want to drive back on that road at night, so I didn't. But yeah, there's a lot of things we need to think about. There's a lot of things to do, but.
Real fast, Amy, there's a good question here. Someone's asking if we feel like Standard is going to fix the language in Senate Bill. They said 40, but I think it's 80, referring to Senate Bill 80. How do we think that's going to go?
So I don't know. I think
Hard to say.
It's hard to say because I don't even know if it's going to get a House hearing, but we have several people in the wings waiting on amendments. You can't file an amendment until it gets scheduled on the floor. Once it gets scheduled on the floor, then you can file amendment, and it has to be there for 24 hours, apparently. But the last time they filed an amendment was 17 minutes. It has to be on 24 hours before they can hear it on the floor. And then we're going to try several different people in several different ways to get the amendments. And if the amendments don't pass, Senator Standridge told one of our volunteers, Kate, in writing, that she would kill the bill when it came back to her desk. Because anytime an amendment gets put in an opposite house, it has to come back to the original author in the other house, and they get a chance to say yes or no. So we are very, very hopeful that she will hold her promise to do that, because it would completely decimate a lot of our legal actions in the next couple years if they got what they wanted. So yeah, that's a good question. But it's not scheduled. And I was under the impression that this was the last week that they were going to hold things on the floor, on the House floor, because they want to all go out and campaign. So we're like waiting to see when they're going to put this on the floor, but we don't know.
So before we go, I want to remind everyone that Royal Bavaria's Family Fun Night, it's also a fundraiser. I'm not sure. They donate part of the proceeds to Pike Off. And then we usually have other fundraising things like silent auction, and I don't know. I'm not sure what we're doing this year, so I don't want to say that for sure. But there usually is something else. But it's so much fun. Everyone always has a great time as long as the weather's good, which it has been, except for last year. I guess we had to postpone because of the bad weather that came through when it was scheduled originally. But it's out in their beer garden, and it's the yummy buffet, so you get a lot of different food there, and it's a great time to come and sit around some picnic tables and chat with other people who are in the same situation that you're in. Get to know your neighbors, get to know what's going on in their lives, get to know what their experience has been. I think this year we'll probably have some people who have been through the whole process at this point. And so hopefully they'll be there and they'll be able to share their experience with everyone. And I'd actually like to get some of them to come on the podcast at some point so we can do some educating there, because I'm sure they have some great tips. But it's just a great time to come and be with other people who understand what you're going through. I mean, raise your hand if you talk with your coworkers or even your family members or, other parents at your kids' ball activities, and you bring up the word turnpike and they go, oh, no, I don't want to talk about that, because they don't understand. It's just easier to say, you know what, I understand that's hard, and like push it away to the side, because nobody knows how to deal with it. It feels so overwhelming to everyone. I don't think that means that they're trying to minimize what you're going through. But this is one time when you can come and sit and you can talk about the turnpike and how awful it is, and everybody's going to support you. So show up. It's a fun time. The food is fantastic, and it's an opportunity you won't want to miss. So put it on your calendars now.
Yeah, and if we don't get a chance to talk with you next week because we're both out of town, we'll get back on. We'll get back on it later in May, and we'll keep you updated. And you should, I should say this to hold myself accountable, but you should see 4 Substacks from me in the near future, all the way back through April till today. And I want you to please try to watch those very short clips from the House and the Senate floor on your representatives and your senators talking for you. And I want you to remember in the primaries in June and vote accordingly, because it's disgusting and we need something to change. And the best way I know that we can make a change is by voting. And then with an honest legal system, but we're only one thing at a time.
And then one last little piece is, I threw back up here on the screen. This is the notice of interest letter that the Turnpike Authority is mailing out to landowners that, say, hey, we want to buy your property or whatever. So just want everybody to kind of see what that looks like. We are working on putting some information on the Pike Off website so that landowners kind of have an idea of what to expect the process to be like. I'm still trying to verify some of it. Mostly what will be up there will just be reports and firsthand accounts from people who have just recently been through the process and what their experience was. And so we're just going to use that as our template for how the process should probably go, so that people know what to expect, because again, they don't have their policies and procedures posted. I've been told that they're updating them and that they will maybe post them at some point. But until then, we just got to wing it and go off of what other people have said happened for them. So anyway, so if you get one of these letters, again, it would be really helpful for you guys if you could let us know. That way we can add, your general location to our map. That way we can kind of help inform other people, so they kind of know what to expect if it's coming to their area as well. So anyway, with that, Amy, did you have anything else?
Just letting people know that our email is admin@pikeoffota.com. So if you can send us that, and we'll try to forward on your request to the person that can help you most, and keep us informed so we can help you in the best way that we know how.
Yes, and if you've been through the process and you'd be willing to sort of mentor somebody that's going through it or will be going through it at some later stage, please reach out to us. Let us know. We'll put you on the list. We'll take down your contact information, because I definitely have landowners who would like to talk with you about what your experience was like. And even if you don't want to talk to somebody, one-on-one, it would be great if you could call and talk with us and let us know what your experience was. What were the stages? What were the steps? What were some roadblocks? What were some things you wish you would have done different? If you could let us know those things, then we can pass that information along, and try to help landowners so that they're not going through blind like you probably were. So anyway, let us know.
That's it. Well, have a great week, everybody. And if we send you a Substack or a newsletter and we ask you to make a move on SB 80, to either email the House members to kill it or to vote for it, please just take 2 minutes out of your day to make your voice heard, because the more response that they get, the more they're likely to listen, because it is an election year. So please do pay attention to that.
Yes. All right. Okay. Well, until probably not this coming Monday, but the Monday after that, that's all for today. Have a great couple weeks, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you for joining us on the Right of Way Report, a podcast by Pike Off OTA. You can join us here every Monday morning at 10 a.m., where we will bring you updates on legislation, litigation, and landowner information.